There's one Chinese city that everyone in the world has heard of, and it's not Beijing, not Shanghai, it's Wuhan. But beyond the headlines, what is the city truly known for?
你给我咋了嘛？
要特别大声是吗？
起码是你给我咋嘛？起码是都是武汉的话，真正就说那种话，晓得不？有的人上厕所还说，哎，你起吗？
So what's the deal with 过早? And what is it that is making this simple question of have you eaten more than just small talk? Well, let's go find out. We have an old saying in Chinese, 一日之计在于晨. What you do in the morning shapes the rest of the day. Chinese people are famously early risers, a habit shaped not just by centuries of agrarian life, but also by deep-rooted health beliefs and a breakfast culture that takes the morning seriously. But few cities in China wake up earlier or louder than Wuhan. And here, the day begins with 过早. Good morning from Wuhan. It's now almost 7 a.m. The sky is already lit up, and so is the street, with steam, shouting, and sizzling oil. Public buses are rolling in, and vendors are wheeling out crates. At least the lazy ones still are. I'm now standing at the busy intersection on Shanhaiguan Lu, a now viral breakfast street in Jiang'anqu, a kind of pilgrimage site for domestic foodies trying to get a taste of Wuhan's iconic breakfast scene. And just when I was impressed with myself for getting up this early, I was to find out that these folks have in fact been active for hours.
这里是5点半开门
5点半就开门了。
5点半就有卖的。我们头一天都要发面，夜晚3、4点钟就要起来。现在天气热了，没有多少人，做个几个。
冬天生意好一点。
冬天生意好一点，凉快点又好些。
那你们冬天也5点半开门那么早，天都还没亮？
哎，天都没亮，我们每天有些夜晚有些环卫工人，人家搞一晚上，他找不到吃的，我这又简单又疗愈，还又便宜，所以我这个东西还蛮受欢迎的，所以我们也还蛮早。
是早，辛苦。
想这个钱。
Maybe you can hear in the background, but having breakfast in Wuhan isn't simply 吃早餐, but 过早, a phrase unique to the city and a few surrounding areas. Let's break down the phrase a bit more. 早, a very common word that we use in Chinese that could be a noun, an adjective, or an interjection. We see it in 早上, 早晨, and they both mean the morning. And 过, in its most common verb form, means to pass. But we also see it in phrases like 过年, to celebrate Chinese New Year, or 过节, to celebrate a festival. So 过早 literally means to pass the morning. But it also has this undertone of doing it properly, ritually, ceremonially almost. So that is one of the possible etymologies of the phrase 过早, and maybe that's why breakfast is so elaborate here. Let's try a few items. I'm now going to queue for 鸡冠饺, chicken coom dumpling, and look at this queue in front of me, absolute chaos. So it's a kind of traditional breakfast item unique to the Hubei province, which got its name from its shape, kind of like the coom on a chicken's head. 还要一个鸡冠饺，谢谢。3块。谢谢。I've never tried this before and I'm super excited. And look how massive it is. It's literally the size of my head. And for this I paid 3 yuan. Okay, let's see what's inside. Oh, it looks empty as of right now. I thought there would be fillings. There are fillings, I just opened on the wrong side. Have a look. Minced pork, scallions. Interesting, I couldn't figure out the rest. I can see why the queue is so long because it's so good. It's so oily. I kind of regret having it first thing in the morning, but it's very well seasoned. That's a big plus. And very filling as well, especially the dough part. The doughiness is getting to me. I think I need something soupy. So let's keep exploring. As I walked past one street vendor after another, I started getting a bit confused. As far as I can remember, Chinese Chengguan, urban management officers in charge of regulating street activities, used to be a lot more strict and visible. 现在这儿摆摊，城管是不管是吗？
管呀，怎么不管呢？没
是管吗？
管呢，
他们会来赶的。
赶呢。
哦，每天都来。
来几次啊？
我看这么热闹，我以为他们无所谓了。
怎么可能呢？要管。
他们一来就推走，然后再回来。
啊，是的。
那这条街就全空了，这边。
他们有门面来，他们有门禁的，没事。我们没门禁，来了就跑啊，那怎么办呢？谢谢你啊。
So no. When I first arrived and saw some of the vendors still pushing their carts around, it wasn't because they were lazy, they were just relocating. And looks like the chase is very much still on. I'm now walking towards what looks like a very popular breakfast spot that serves yuhu tangfen, a kind of milky fish broth that comes with very thin rice noodles. Look, I know that zhegan mian, which is a kind of dry noodles with loads of sesame paste, is meant to be Wuhan's most iconic noodle dish.
到武汉来一定要尝一下武汉正宗的热干面。哎，热干面是我们武汉的特色，知道吗？
But personally, I've never really liked it. And I don't know if this is something I could say out loud because it's really unpopular opinion in Wuhan. But today I'm sticking with yuhu tangfen, which is also one of my childhood favorites. Let's go order. 阿姨，我要一个小份加油条。9元。谢谢。我现在扫。Here I am, and I just want to show you my view. Time to taste. Oh, it's so peppery, very, very hearty, and it's not fishy at all, in case that's what you're wondering, and just like I remember it as a kid. What I ordered alongside there, let me show you. So this is called youtiao. It's a kind of fried dough, deep fried, that is crispy on the outside and airy inside. It's a very popular breakfast item that you can find pretty much everywhere in China. But I think since we're here, actually we're meant to dip it into the soup. So it will soak up all the flavors and add a chewy crunch. That's how oily it is. When we were picking up our orders, I don't know if you remember seeing these stainless steel containers with toppings and condiments that the aunties would add for you, but you could also adjust it yourself. Well, I have a very funny anecdote to share. A few days ago, I was having doupi, also a very iconic breakfast dish, and I thought it was a bit under-seasoned, to be fair. And without thinking too much, well, now that thinking about it, I must be out of my mind. But I reached for some salt, some pepper, some scallion, basically anything that was there. And I was like, oh, let me just season it myself. When the owner saw me doing it, he was so unamused. He went like, 都是提前调好味的, which roughly translates to, the flavors have all been pre-calculated. So here I have for you a very interesting nuance about dining culture in China. You know how in the West, being a chef is a very respectable profession. If I were to meet a chef, for example, I would most likely go, whoa, that's so cool, because you are a creative force. But as diners, we are free to add salt, pepper, ask for ketchup, mayo, maybe not in Italy. But I mean, those are usually within an arm's reach on a dinner table anyways. And those are all perfectly fine, right? But in China, being a chef isn't exactly the most glamorous or cool job. It doesn't command the same social respect. However, as diners, No matter where we're dining, whether if it's a fancy restaurant or, literally on the street like now, we are expected to respect the chef by not changing anything. We just eat what we're given. I should say that there are exceptions, and they are noodle soup and soups, or if you see that there are condiments and toppings and seasoning that's been clearly put out for you to add yourself, which I would say is very rare. But in any other scenario, please, and I'm begging you, do not ask for additional salt, or what's even worse, soy sauce. Because in my head, and I would think most people would agree with me, that just screams massive, massive disrespect. As a result, you might be getting a side of judgment alongside the dish you ordered. So that is what I would call the virtues of dining in China. There are endless options on the street alone, stall after stall, each one serving something slightly different. And one overarching theme in Wuhan's breakfast culture, apart from this overwhelming variety, is that, as I'm sure you have noticed, it's extremely carb-heavy and oily. We're talking sticky rice, rice noodles, flour doughs, whatever form carbs can take, you can find here. And what we've just seen now, 鸡冠饺, 油条, they're all deep fried. And the list only goes on. Yet, somehow, locals here are still very slim, and it's something that is still very curious to me. According to a survey conducted in 2019, the obesity rate in Hubei province was 10.3%, making it actually one of the least obese provinces in China. And just for reference, as of 2020, the adult obesity rate in the US was approximately 42%. Luckily, portions here are, relatively speaking, quite small, so you can always order one of each to get a taste of everything. And the best part, you could always mix and match. Buy from different stalls and bring everything to one place that has seating. No one seems to mind if you're bringing food or drinks from outside. It's all part of the culture here. It's very communal, very casual, and incredibly forgiving, except for when you try to change their seasoning, like I did. Bad idea. And this mix and match culture, buying from different stalls, sharing a table with strangers, and eating wherever and however you want, is made possible by another practice that is very ubiquitous in contemporary China: disposables. One thing you notice pretty quickly here is that almost everything is served in disposable containers. Plastic bags for smaller items, and paper bowls for noodle soups. 现在在武汉过早，如果你不明确说，就是都是用纸碗是吗？
都是什么？
用纸碗。
对，有的他愿意用，有的他不相信，知道吗？
为什么呢？
他也是怕不干净呐，没消毒啊。
我看刚刚有个叔叔，他就用那个钢碗吃。
他有的就要用这个，
是好吃一点吗？
好拌一点，这个是什么？好，这个好拌一点。
So it's not just for delivery. This is the default, even if you're eating right there at the stall. But of course this creates a whole environmental dilemma, and recently my mom has been pressing me to bring my own bowl when eating out. My dad, on the other hand, suggested that we could simply say 用碗装, which means put it in a bowl, and they will understand that I mean a reusable one. But the only problem is seating is limited. Many stalls do not have chairs, and when they do, it's not always indoors or air-conditioned. And if it is, trust me, you definitely won't be the only one looking for relief, but sometimes I really get the feeling that locals actually prefer to settle down outside on these iconic red plastic chairs while eating a bowl of boiling hot noodle soup and sweating it all out under the summer sun. And what's better Many don't even sit down at all.
Here in Wuhan, people have mastered the art of 边走边吃, eating while walking, carried with one hand and eaten with chopsticks in another, all while masterfully dodging mopeds and pedestrians in the meantime.
We're now in the same spot as the beginning of this video, and now you've seen Wuhan's breakfast energy in action. But why is it so fast, so loud, and so few heavy? And what gave form to its distinctive rhythm? Well, to understand this, we need to go back in time.
Wuhan sits at the intersection of the Yangtze and Han rivers, linking the city's three historic towns, Wuchang, Hankou, Hanyang. Before the bridges and the metro, life here moved on water. Boats and ferries didn't just transport people and goods, they set the pace of daily life. This was a port culture, fast-paced, labor-intensive, shaped by movement and flow. Before Changjiang Daqiao, China's first combined rail and road bridge, which Chairman Mao called a miracle, opened in 1957, boats and ferries were the only way across. Until then, every morning meant crossing by water. Laborers, often on tight schedules and empty stomachs, needed something cheap, hot, and filling that would prepare them for the long hours of physically demanding work ahead. Some say that this very ritual, eating while passing across the Yangtze River, 过江, gave rise to the term 过早, not just having breakfast, but passing the morning in motion, between towns, between shifts, surrounded by steam, voices, and the damp wind of the Yangtze.
So I'm about to leave, but I just saw something really interesting and I want to show you. Apparently it's time for Lotus delivery, and here is a whole van of fresh lotus that they've just dug out from the pond.
What just got delivered here aren't the flowers, but the roots of lotus. The thick, starchy rhizomes that grow beneath the mud. In Chinese we say, 出淤泥而不染, to rise from the muck unstained. It's a way of praising the purity of lotus flowers, but more often, it's used as an allegory for virtuous individuals who stay uncorrupted by their surroundings. And when you really see how much mud there is underneath, the saying will certainly click.
Oh my gosh! But these could have been the rain boots. I mean, wellies that Peppa Pig was wearing when they were jumping in muddy puddles.
现在比较少，我到9月份以后是这3倍起码。
真的？
这个季节吃藕汤的人少，太热了。
是的。
到了9月份以后，那个藕就会特别粉糯。现在是以脆嫩的为主，明白吗？跟藕带一样，以脆嫩的为主。
Locals here care a lot if the lotus roots are soft or crunchy, because it's such a staple in Hubei cuisine. And you will find it in almost everything, from hearty soups to quick stir fries to refreshing cold salads.
是不是全国就是湖北人爱吃藕？我感觉其他地方也没有这么多。
产藕最多，湖南其实现在全国各地都产藕，只是这边的藕品质要好一点，品种问题。
So I think it's getting delivered to this shop that specializes in lotus-related products. Let's have a look. Here you can see lotuses in its different stages, and I'm assuming these ones just came straight from the pond. They've just been chopped up, and hence it's so muddy. Then it's soaked in water for the mud to slowly come off. They have to clean the holes, peel the skin off until it's ready to cook, not eat. And it's a really lengthy and laborious process. 阿姨，你这个藕从池塘里挖出来，然后到可以卖，要准备多久啊？
今天拖回来你们就卖了。
感觉好辛苦啊，好麻烦。
要洗。
赚的就是辛苦钱。
真的。那你这些藕是哪里挖的呀？
就是武汉本地叫蔡甸一个地区也比较有名的藕，我们自己种的。
自己种的。
承包藕塘自己种自己卖，是给餐馆就隔壁餐馆的。
他们藕汤都是这边来的。
你吃了藕汤吗？
我没有在这里吃，因为太热了。
对的。
现在你能在那些大型连锁的饭店里吃的藕都是预制的。
预制的藕，还是预制的汤？
提前的他们把汤炖好，放冷冻。首先，因为这个季节的藕，你要吃到很粉嫩的藕，都是去年的。
真的。
While mature lotus roots can be frozen and reheated, 藕带, the tender young stems, are strictly a fleeting summer delicacy. They oxidize quickly, and you rarely see them outside the province. I bought a bunch, but wasn't sure how to store them.
你把藕带带回家吗？
回去放冰箱，放冷藏。
不用泡水。
不要不是，你炒的时候，给这个白兔就可以了，它就不黑。
给一点什么？
白兔。
好，谢谢你啊！好吃我再来。拜拜，辛苦辛苦。
I say goodbye to the shop owners, but the story of the lotus doesn't end here. Walk a little further down the market, and you find another summer specialty. Auntie's busy cracking open these alien-looking green pots to get at 莲子, fresh lotus seeds. But if you decide to give these a try, there's still plenty of work waiting at home. You first have to peel off the skin and remove the tiny lotus heart, 莲心, which is bitter. And on the opposite end of effort, nothing beats ofen, lotus root grounded into a fine starch. It's smooth and instant, often used with desserts here. From roots to stems, seeds to powder, lotus is a whole summer pantry in Wuhan, and one of the most versatile ingredients in Hubei cuisine. Go to East Lake, Donghu in the summer, and you see the image that ties it all together. Lotus leaves layered over the water, blossoms in bloom. A fleeting scene, yet one that lingers long after.
Before we wrap up, let me be honest with you with one last thing. So if you happen to be in Wuhan, Guzao is absolutely worth waking up for. But is it worth going to the exact same street that I went to? If you were to ask me, the answer is absolutely not. It's become way too touristy. Plus, going all the way almost defeats the whole spirit of Guzao, which is meant to be very casual and very portable. So my advice, just head to your closest neighborhood market. There you find as much variety and even more authentic flavors. We're here now at East Lake, probably the single most serene spot in the city. But did you know that Wuhan was once at the very center of one of the most turbulent chapters of modern Chinese history? And I know what you're thinking, but that's not what I meant. What I'm referring to is a revolution. One that effectively ended over 2,000 years of imperial rule in China and laid the foundation of what this country was to become today. But that's a story for another time. Wuhan in the PM. And until then, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.